For political talk on another PolitiPod Live. Tonight we'll cover Orban's a loser, the 25th Amendment, creep's gonna creep, and a regular Trump dump. We'll also have our segments Economy and Geo Quiz. I'm Tom Bickle.
I'm Hannah Soldner.
And I'm Matt Nisanoff.
Tonight we'll start with Orban's a loser.
Looks that way. Looks like the Hungarians have had their say. And even though it took 16 years, they indeed have finally said that this guy's got to go. He lost the presidential vote to Pete Magyar. I believe I'm pronouncing that wrong. And that's the fella on top there. And, of course, some say what sealed his fate, what sealed Orban's fate, was that just before the election, J.D. Vance was sent over.
And, the kiss of death.
Joined a rally and took care of that problem for us. So I don't know. Maybe we owe J.D. Vance a vote of confidence. So finally, I mentioned it took 16 years, but finally the fascists got screwed, and now we'll see what actually happens. I understand Orban conceded, so that's a very positive step that he recognized that he lost and he recognized people's choice, and now we'll have to see exactly what form does that take. What form does his concession take, and what does he do next? He will probably wind up in the U.S. cabinet. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I do want to go back and note that J.D. Vance, I told my friend this recently, appears to be the Typhoid Mary of losers right now. He's just sort of passing around loserdom. Though I will say, I thought Orban was a loser far before he lost. No, I mean, I think it's good. He lost in a landslide. I think it's worth noting. And, I think that in the past, I'm not going to put a year on this because it's too depressing the longer I think about it, but I feel like there's been growing energy of people being fatalistic about voting, and they've been like, what, does it really matter? And like, I do understand, that when it's become kind of the only mantra that the sort of, in our country's case, the Democrats kind of have in many ways, that it can feel a little bit like you got to have more than that. But it is also super important. I mean, to see somebody, he might not have even conceded had it not been a landslide. And, you see these, autocrats or whatever, they make sure they're like falsified elections. They always win by some absurd landslide. So it still means something. It's not nothing.
Yeah, and actually it's more important. Yeah, I agree with you 110% on that it is the thing that actually works. And it is frustrating because we have to wait for an election, and then you got to make certain that people remember that there's an election and remember to bother themselves to go vote without their realizing how important it is, and that it actually does. That's the place that we actually have a voice. And during the in between those elections, politicians can, frankly, ignore you. They cannot, they can just move right through and do their own thing. And there are some that do. There are some that are good and will be responsive, but they don't have to be. The thing that matters, the bottom line is, the thing that matters is when the election rolls around, and is there somebody there to actually vote? Because that's taking away their job seems to be the thing that catches their attention.
So yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of folks, I guess they had a nice high voter turnout, which has been this country's Achilles heel for so many years. We had more people, I'm not sure, but as I recall, the people who didn't vote outvoted the people who did vote in our last election. And that's a trend we've seen. Just every year, it seems like fewer and fewer people vote. And then so we look upwards and we plead to the heavens, oh, Lord, just send us more voters. Let's get people more involved. And then you have the Trumpers. And we went, wait, no, not like that. But that's how it is when you pull more people in. You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they're
Well,
well
that's true, but
informed.
you got to actually
Sometimes they're
get
not.
them in. The bigger, I think your point is that the larger group subgroup was people who didn't vote, and that is
Yeah, for
true
sure.
all the time in the U.S. It's true. I think Hannah mentioned in a previous episode how there are places like Australia where voting is actually mandatory. You actually get small, but you get a fine if you don't
Right. Yeah,
actually vote, and that is another way to encourage participation. But it's people don't always recognize how powerful it is, and that it's and they they say, oh, it doesn't make a difference, the two parties aren't are the same, and all that kind of nonsense that gets out put out there to help dissuade people from voting.
absolutely. In
And
this country, we are working to keep our citizens from voting
Yeah.
really hard.
exactly, if it didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying so desperately hard to restrict voting and to prevent people from voting tooth and nail.
Yeah, and places have, national holidays and all, they also do back to Australia just because one of my best friends lives there. They have they do like cookouts there. So it's like show up to vote and you'll get like a sausage and like a soda and like whatever. And like, that kind of stuff, like it works. And it's, it's one of the reasons why some states here have banned like giving water to people online or whatever. Um, and especially like as a holiday, it might be a little bit different as a Sunday, but I feel like as a holiday, there is a certain like pressure to do the whatever the holiday thing is, like, um, you just be like, yeah, it's the 4th of July. I have the day off, but I might as well, whatever.
Have a
Um,
barbecue.
yeah. Um, yeah. And so I feel like, or, if it's, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so the idea is like there's this it's made harder for all these like unnecessary reasons. um I do want to though, we can talk more about voting if we want, but I do want to talk with Orban. I don't know what will happen with this, but it's not inconsequential that there's been a satellite CPAP in Hungary every year. CPAC, sorry. Hopefully CPAPs too. I have a CPAP, but a CPAC, and so I don't know if the new chief executive will ban that or not. But I feel like even that idea of we're less like chummy, especially because a lot of authoritarians kind of rely on being seen as normal and average, and it's pretty abnormal to have another country's there's obviously, of course, like local, you know, right wing people as well, but like having another country's like festival, or whatever, it seems a little weird. So hopefully, like that will be stymied to some degree.
We'll see. I mean, that is a thing, and I think actually it's been sort of part of what the planning all along, if you will, that they do that, and that the conservatives focused on the Supreme Court for a long time to see what they could do about winning a majority there, and that culminated in Mitch McConnell and twisting some of the seats into Republican conservatives' hands. Just like they focused in my opinion is they focused in different states on different issues to see how they can work the issue. Like Virginia, for decades was a big thing about taxes and paying taxes, and that was the conservative messaging in every Republican messaging in almost every election. So it was working with the population and trying to uh, see what issues were soft enough. And I think they've just done that on the international. I think they did it with Israel. I think they did it with Hungary. I think that there are other, from their point of view, opportunities where they can go to the international community and say, "Hey, look, we'll bring in consultants and we'll help you with your PR, and we're the mighty America, and we can come in and we can help you out." With organizing and help you with what you're doing to organize. And they've been effective in some places. and Hungary is one of them. But there's a backlash, and in this case, it worked out so that it's in the hands of this Mr. Magyar, and we're going to have to see what he does and how he does it. We're going to have to watch him real carefully because the depending on what he does, there could be a backlash to that. And right now, the system is sort of geared to include conservatives. So that's he's got a big job in front of him. Speaking of big jobs in front of us, I'm thinking we should move to our next issue. Was that smooth enough? Did that go nicely? Okay. The next issue on our agenda tonight is talking about the 25th Amendment, and looks like it's not just for conspiracy nuts anymore. There's suggestions about the using the 25th Amendment have increased, and it's been noted that even conservatives are now getting on board with the idea, and it's not exactly clear where it's coming from. We'll, in 30 years when we are able to access people's records, we'll find out a whole lot more, I think, and we'll see what the truth of it was. But for right now, all we can see is that there are conservatives like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson and some other prominent conservative activists who are now saying, "Wow, it's time to invoke the 25th Amendment," and it seems to be what has triggered that was the meme of Trump putting himself in the image of Jesus. I think it's Jesus of Nazareth, if you're looking at which Jesus, and also the assault on the Pope, where he tweeted out about how the Pope is weak and praise be to Allah and all this sort of things that you wouldn't expect from somebody who is the president of the United States. What do you think?
It's interesting. We were talking a little bit, was it last week? We were talking a little bit about some similar invoking of some of this from like Alex Jones and people like that. And so, it is an interesting growing little chorus of people. And of course, there's also a bunch of Democrats as well doing the same, unsurprisingly. But there's something you said that I was going to respond to directly, but I'm not recalling what it was. But yeah, it does seem to be like there are some people on the conservative side that do seem to have are true believers in something, and Green was having similar things about the Epstein list, like her faith in her anti-pedophile beliefs shouldn't be remarkable. Apparently they are real. She does believe those things. As opposed to JD Vance, who today or yesterday was telling the Pope that he should be more careful when he's like quoting theology or whatever. Vance, who is a Catholic, by the way. So not just a Christian, but specifically a Catholic. But yeah, I think that this does seem to be a red line for some people. And I think that, we've been through a lot of heartbreak and nothing burgers over the past 10 years. But I do think like some of this does seem to be gaining a little steam. Or at least hopefully it makes it a little bit harder for Trump to say whatever he wants. I mean, I think he's taken down the truth of him as Jesus. I think I heard that, and so there is some of the blowback does work.
Yeah, what restraint! Wow,
right, I know.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to it. There's as you mentioned, ranking member Jamie Raskin is calling for the White House physician to check out Trump and see if there's a way to invoke the 25th Amendment, which of course requires the vice president and the cabinet to invoke. So that may be why there's a call for, in Raskin's call, is saying, put together some kind of a committee to look at this and have J.D. Vance lead the committee, because that's the requirement for invoking the 25th, as I understand it. Tom, anything on the 25th Amendment?
I mean, yeah, a few things. I've said it for years. When Trump goes crazy, how will we know? He runs around like a head trauma victim from the word go. He doesn't make any sense. He doesn't know anything. Even when he knows when he knows the truth of something, he lies anyway, just for practice, I guess. He's antisocial. He's not tied to. Not only is he uninformed, he's also stupid, and it just makes him profoundly untied to reality. And so he's not doing well. But when has he been or done well? At best, you're lucky he's just not running around taking bites out of people and wiping boogers on the wall. In my opinion, that's the type of sociopathy that he's shown from the start. And so, yeah, now he's always been jealous of the spotlight. Anybody that gets too close to the limelight, looks too good, comes off too well in the news, he kneecaps him. He was jealous of Fauci. He's jealous of JD. He's using JD as his own personal mop. He's just rubbing him in one dirty pile of crap to another, just dirtying this guy up. I have no sympathy for him, but he's sending him on these kamikaze missions, and he crashes and burns, and he comes back and he does it again.
Well, for JD, I mean, look, you kill one pope,
right? And then people call you the Pope killer. It's really unfair. But yeah, he's leapfrogged from several lily pads over the last 6 months and just left some of it. You can't necessarily hang on him. The Pope wasn't looking too good anyway, but after a while they start to add up, and Trump sends him into these nightmare scenarios again, because I think he's jealous of the spotlight and doesn't want anybody else to come off looking too good. He knows he's swirling the drain, and that J.D. Vance ready to take the baton from him, and he'd rather hit him across the snout with it than hand it off. That's what happens when you deal with snakes. When you deal with vipers, you're gonna get bit. And I don't feel it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, either of them.
Yeah, that is true.
I don't really understand. We have all watched aghast, agog, eyes wide open as this person has paraded cruelty up and down our national election system and just been the worst possible version of himself. And for years, they have swallowed it. They've swallowed it whole. They don't chew. They just take it in, and they love it because we're all just bleeding from the eyes, and they go, ha ha, you're triggered. I don't know why now. What is the difference now? What is in the air and now that wasn't before? Is it the destruction of the country? We've seen it coming. We've watched it happen. Is it the abrogation of our rights? Again, nothing new. It's gotten worse, but they've slept through all this and more. They've slept through much louder problems, these deadhead Americans that are finally coming around, I guess, the Joe Rogans of it all. I don't understand what the trigger is. He's a lying, cheating, raping pedophile. And those are his good qualities. And now you're starting, a picture of God. I mean, that's too much.
Well, right.
That's the stupidest thing in the world, and it sounds like a lot of us here in this country. But he's already posted pictures of himself as the Pope, and other things descending from heaven just to jazz up. I don't know who he's trying to irritate with that. He's already done these things. It's mixed. It's baked in, baby. It's in the batter. You're soaking in it like palm olive. I don't understand the change. I don't understand.
It could be the conservatives just trying to show their support for JD Vance to move into to finally move somebody into the next slot. As you say, he usually is very competent at cutting him off at the knees whenever anybody else gets any sort of limelight, or if he feels that they're getting enough so that it could be one up on him, that his response is to kneecap him and to go after him. But this might be the big push by the conservatives to try to get J.D. Vance the nomination for the Republicans for the next presidential. This could be the start of that, and this is the way or they feel that this is the way to do it. As you're saying, all it will take is for Trump to feel the slightest bit, um, jealous or whatever it is that's his trigger, and he'll go after JD in a heartbeat. I mean, he'll take that guy apart like he went after John McCain, or like he went after the Jeff Flake, I think was the other senator in Arizona who he just
Everybody can get it. Everybody can get it. The only thing I can think of is that somehow, somewhere, something has shifted where they've redone the math and they know that he's too old to run for a third term. So we're already in lame duck territory.
There's and the pesky little details like the Constitution. Sure.
I mean, no, they gave up on that. That doesn't matter. That's just paper. The 14th Amendment, we've already been through that. The Constitution means whatever they say it means at the time they say it. No matter what they said 3 years ago, 3 months ago, 3 minutes ago. I don't think they're worried about the Constitution. I think that they're worried that they're going to get swamped in the midterms and they're not going to get anything more out of this guy. And he's not going to live free long enough for that third term. Again, Constitution be damned. If they could do it, they would. I think they calculated that they can't. They've gotten most of the blood they're going to squeeze out of this stone. And so they're gearing up to cut him loose and, pretend that they never met him and they're just as aghast as you and I are. I don't know if it's how that's going to work, but I've watched this country do more clueless things without breaking stride. So
I think to put on my cynic hat, like that would be the ideal, right, for them, because you can kick Trump out and be like, that guy was crazy, and we've done this, but also we're going to keep all these people in the Supreme Court and all these laws passed and all this whatever. The problem is if he goes too far, there could be some potential leeway for a liberal party to come back and be like, hey, we're just going to strike everything that was done under this guy. We're going to strike him from the record books. This is our reason to impeach his judges. This is our reason to, whatever.
We should have a plan. We should have a plan to set everything right, shore up the traditions and institutions that are supposed to safeguard this freaking country. And we should have a plan for revenge for everybody who helped bring us this low. There should be definitely legal consequences that affect people's lives. No more of this, we don't prosecute presidents. Oh, it's too close to an election. We don't do that. No, we should do it all. We should do it with vigor. We should have a plan. I don't see anybody tallying up a plan of how to strengthen the Constitution and the institutions that have failed, how to bolster Congress. This Congress could change this at a moment's whim. Anytime they can yank on the leash on this guy, and they're not. We should have better thinking around that. By the time we get the whip hand is ours again, we should have a plan and hit it hard, because the opportunity when that comes is going to be a limited time only thing. There's going to be a rush and a flush of euphoria that we've got some control back and some sanity. God willing, it comes to pass. But we should be prepared to take that opportunity because it's not going to last forever.
We'll see. I mean, as you point out, sometimes the opposition is not actually opposition, and the Democrats did have a period where they were in control after the first Trump administration, and they kept a lot of his stuff in place.
They squandered a lot of opportunity.
Right, Biden administration continued a number of things the Trump administration started, based on the argument of, no, we can't just go in and change things.
Yeah.
That's too radical, and we gotta work with what we got. So I agree with you 100% that if the truth of the matter is we need to have something that will be willing to overturn and go after and correct what has happened.
This is an
And
opportunity for
that's
course
not
correction on a wide ranging fundamental level, and we'd be fools to to squander it.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying, if I was some sort of Republican strategist, my main strategy would be, how do I drop all this in Trump's lap, push him out, and be like, that guy did everything bad. Let's not ignore everything he actually did, and just will be like, not that guy. So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what would be my main strategy: is how do we carry on his work, or at least
well.
not lose any ground by blaming everything on him or something. So I imagine that that's a major thing that the GOP strategists are thinking right now.
The
Maybe that's,
Republicans have been doing that for decades.
yeah, and maybe that's part of why this turn. Why now?
Well, yeah, actually, yeah, absolutely right. Maybe that's Tom. There's your answer as to why now, because they're gearing up for the regular changing of the guard, and they want to be able to distance themselves from all the things that they considered gains, but now want to distance themselves from for electoral reasons. And the way to do that is to dump it all on Trump and then say, hey, that guy's gone. Here's us. We're the new conservatives. We're the new, whatever, and then and try to reset things so that they're able to keep power. But that's why we have elections. Um, I'm going to ask that we move on from here. Although this is clearly an issue that we should continue and also remember to bring up, or that we will bring up in future episodes to revisit, because clearly it's something that we all have thoughts on and that we all have more to say. But for now, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is called the Geo Quiz, and it may not be a big long time, or may not be the biggest issue, but we do want to mention it at least, and that is, with all that's going on at the Straits of Hormuz, with Trump having handed the power to the Iranians to use it as a choking point, so that they can now charge a toll so that they can get money from ships that they weren't before. And with all the blocking of certain ships from leaving, the ones heading for China with Iranian oil seem to be going through quite well. Thank you very much. But there are others, and they are getting backed up, and it is causing an issue, because of what happens when you all of a sudden have whatever it is, 500, 3,000, whatever, however many ships get backed up. How do you handle that, and how do you get everybody through? How do you, what's the consequences of all that? And one of them is that there's another choke point, and people haven't been talking about it, and that is the Straits of Hormuz are part of the Persian Gulf. And so the eastern side of Saudi Arabia, between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And then if ships are able to get through the Straits of Hormuz, then the question is where do they go next? And the next point is on the western side of Saudi Arabia, down where the choking point is down where Djibouti in Africa is across from Saudi Arabia. And that's an area called Bab Mandeb Straits. And there's talk about the Hutu being able to access that as a choke point. And now that they've seen that the Iranians have been able to use it to get money, that maybe they'll use it as a choke point as well. But then the question is, where does that access? And where it accesses is the Red Sea up to between where Africa and the Middle East are. So what we would call the Suez Canal between Egypt and it's all part of Egypt now. And the thing about the Suez Canal is that it's just a canal. So ships would have to, if there were ships that tried to use this access, then there would be a problem with their weight. They'd have to lose weight to be able to get through the Suez Canal compared to when they're weighed down with a full load of oil. So how does that affect trade? How does that slow things down? How does that, how do you handle that as well? So there's a bunch more questions that come up, and part of that is, will Bab Mandeb Straits be the next Straits of Hormuz?
Yeah, it might help if you're watching this to look up a picture of what Africa and sort of the Middle East look like, South Asia look like. But yeah, like it's obviously like Africa's a massive country to go around another direct country. Oh my God, continents. It's 54 countries. It's a massive continent of 54 countries. Going around it is not some simple thing. And there's so much of this, so much infrastructure is built around this whole system of like where things go. And I would imagine, I don't really know, I didn't look this up, but I would imagine that unless you're just taking one thing to one country, like, we're taking oil here, there might be like, you come here and pick up this thing and take it here, and now the path might not make sense anymore. This stuff that's been refined over however many years or decades. And yeah, like there's already been sort of this threatening of this strait being closed previously. And so it's not some kind of, and Matt, to your point, yeah, like if anything, we've kind of taught that we actually are not that good at pushing back on this kind of stuff. And if you just shut it down, then, you can, maybe get money out of us or out of whomever, or work countries against each other or whatever, and I feel like it ends up making things worse. Actually, I saw somebody talking in an interview about somebody high up in the cabinet, and they said, they're asking them what are the goals for the war, and they said one of the primary goals is to open the Strait of Hormuz, and they were like, well, that is only a problem because of the war. It's not like it's like it can't have been a goal of the war because it's only started because we did that.
Right.
Yeah. So here's an example of where Djibouti is, and Saudi Arabia and Yemen, I think, and this sort of like choke point, right here in the sort of center of the map.
Yeah, it says, I think on this map it says
Amazing.
the word Asab, which is identifying part of the land, but it's actually just above what we're talking about, which is that little choke point that's created because of that land that's poking out from Yemen or from Saudi. Well, it's just south of Saudi Arabia, as you were saying, Yemen. But that's that place where, because of it cutting down on the accesses, allows for a choke point, which is what we've just been talking about.
Yeah.
And so the Red Sea is just off to the upper left of this map. Thank you for setting that all up, Tom. Thank you for getting that.
Sure thing.
Also, A+ pun.
Okay, so we're saying watch out for it. It hasn't happened yet, but it could be the next thing that becomes an issue because of the foolishness of Trump's folly, because of this whole thing that he started to try to distract from the Epstein files, that it's not only caused damage temporarily, it's caused damage that's going to last for a long time. And there'll be other issues that come up because of it. It's not just one thing where it's yes or no. It's not just the Straits of Hormuz, and we'll just reopen it, and it will be great. And now he's using the U.S. Navy to force a blockade of the Straits of Hormuz himself. So that's only going to make things worse. And what do you have when you have, it takes a, a whole quarter to a half of a day to get a ship to go through the Straits of Hormuz under the best conditions. And when you've blockaded several hundred or several thousand ships, what sort of a backlog does that create? And how much time does it take to straighten all that out? And frankly, we're going to find out, because that's where we are now.
I also want to note sometimes this is a little bit maybe heady to think about the geography, and you might not have thought about it since high school or something. And there's always that thing about like, when will this ever become practical? Why do I have to learn it? And I just want to tell you, here comes my pessimistic thought. Take 30 minutes and learn about this waterways around South Asia and Africa, because they are going to probably become relevant every 10 years or so for the rest of your life. So just remember next time, hey, this is why we shouldn't do this, apart from all the other reasons we shouldn't do this.
Right. And as you pointed out earlier, to go under and around Africa, that's been known for 200 or 300 years that takes time. And
That's
that
actually
takes a lot of, that makes a lot of, it makes everything, that's the reason there is a Suez Canal. That's the reason why there's these other access points to move things north and south, is because they figured out that having to go all the way down to go around takes time.
That's why Columbus set sail.
All right. Speaking of creeps, we're going to move on to our next issue, which is Creeps Gonna Creep. And this has come up because of recent information that's come out about a number of different people. You see here, there's Christy Nome, and we all know about her creeping in the plane with Corey Landowski. The guy in the middle there is Texas Republican Tony Gonzalez, who has finally filed to remove himself to resign from Congress. He was having an affair with one of his staff, and he became such a creep and such a constant stalker that the young lady actually committed suicide. And she was married to start with. And when she committed suicide, and Gonzalez continued to deny that anything had happened, her husband got a hold of her texts and released them publicly. That's what kind of got his attention, or got him to sort of consider what would happen next. And then even with Mike Johnson protecting him, he finally has had to resign because of what has come out. And then there's Eric Swalwell. How do you Swalwell?
Swalwell.
Swalwell, yes.
Swalwell. He's a Democratic congressman, and he was in a run for governor in California. There's going to be a big election. The governor is going to change, and so it's a jungle primary there. So anyone who wants to run can run, and they'll go through the first round of elections just to find two people who they can have then run against each other for the position. But he was he was running what seemed to be a very solid campaign. I mean, he was up there in the polls and looked like he had a real shot to move forward. And now that's stopped. He's stopped not only campaign, but resigned from Congress. Go ahead.
This country does love its charismatic sociopaths.
And elects them. I mean, it's they kind of hone in on electing them.
Do not let that person run for your local mayor anywhere in California. We just went through that here. Don't do it. Don't. I know you probably don't want to. We didn't want to anyway either, but it might happen.
You know, I read I read a pretty convincing account of analysis about what's going to happen to the California governor's race, because of the way the primaries work. the top two vote getters go head to head. And if you take your best Democratic heretofore best Democratic candidate out, the rest of the lineup from Democrats, they've had trouble finding a strong lead candidate. Everybody is sort of lost in the sauce of everyone else. So there's a weakness there. I guess we'll find out on June 2nd.
Literally, yeah.
But it'd be a stone cold bummer to not have any Democrats running for the governor's office this year. I don't know if I could tolerate that.
It certainly is a serious issue that it could wind up being two Republicans in the top two spots, and then that will be who the Californians have to choose from. But I also think that while that's a legitimate concern, I also think that in California it might be a little easier to settle on a Democratic sort of front runner, and there's certainly time. In politics, a week is a long time, and you've got certainly more than a week till June 2nd. So I think that there might be a bit of an infight, obviously, because everybody wants to be the one who winds up being the person, right?
Right.
But I think that in California, I think it's not difficult to believe that the Democrats will be able to figure something out. Who I must say, though, with that said, I can't name two other Democrats who were in the race. I mean, there was a Congresswoman, Katie Porter, right? She's in on it. I know that.
And that's all I got.
Well, so it might be
In my defense, I'm not in California anymore, so if that excuses a little of my ignorance, so be it.
Not in your face every day on the issue. We should, well, I don't know, maybe we should find a Californian and bring them in and see what they have to say for themselves. I'll work on that. That'd be nice. All right. Well, and that's, but the serious issue is that this is, there's more of a loss of these people because of their own behavior and it catching up with them, and that's what it did with all three of these creeps. And and
it's not partisan. Just don't be a creep anywhere on the political aisle.
Right, exactly.
Also, not even outside of the political aisle. Just stop being creeps.
It would be nice. So and across the political spectrum and even across the gender spectrum, we've got a couple of creeps right there that prove it. Okay, we're going to, speaking of creeps, perhaps we should move on to our favorite creep, and that is moving on to our Trump dump. And there's so much. Now we'll look at it, only 3 or 4 of them, I think, but yeah, there's
something.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned earlier, Tom, there's the case on this guy is every other day something new. Of course, we're talking about, we mentioned earlier, not only is there a blockade by the Iranians, but his response has been, well, if you're going to blockade, we're going to blockade. And he's now sent U.S. Navy ships to blockade 3 or 4 different ports. So that is happening. That's not just something that he's talking about, like most times where he just blathers on about something, but he's actually done that. And what's going to happen with this and the results, and what does that mean for other choke points? And then, and it is a fair point that, as I said earlier, with the ships in the Straits of Hormuz, who is traveling through as the Chinese ships, the Iranians sell to China, sell oil to China, and that has not been blockaded. That has not been stopped. When is the first time that a U.S. Navy ship is going to try to muscle up on a Chinese-bound oil ship, and what's going to happen with that? What result could come from getting China deeper into this whole war scenario?
Yeah, I can call it now. Trump will drop a nuclear bomb on the U.S. mainland and declare victory in the war on China, on the same day,
Don't give him any ideas.
right?
And also, as we all mentioned, he may be on his way out, and he may have even figured that out, that he has to go, and he may be even resigning himself to that. And another sign of that, other than the increased call for the 25th Amendment, so they have something to blame it on, is that apparently he has started to promise staff pardons in advance of leaving the administration, because he knows that when he leaves that there's going to have to be some accountability for things that have happened. But he's starting to promise people presidential pardons in advance, so that they will feel more comfortable leaving, which is just another outrage from him, just another thing that is wrong. Also, his Department of Justice has a board that's looking at religious liberty and saying that Christians are being attacked by secular forces, whatever that means, in the United States. Because
Ooh.
exactly, if there's one people who just don't have it good here, it's white Christians in America. But apparently, they're claiming that the religion is under attack by the secular forces. Can you name a recent attack on someone's religious leader and who that was by?
Something does come to mind. It does sound familiar. It's ringing a bell for me.
See if you can picture it.
Try hard.
Yeah. So the most recent attacks on religion has been Trump attacking the Pope as weak on crime. And not only is it ridiculous, but it is a solid talking point that he has used in elections, and he's had others use in their elections. So why not throw it at the Pope, see if it sticks? But so the chiefest religious figure who's been attacked is the Pope by Donald Trump. And
The Pope, that
Catholic.
just strikes me so odd. The Pope is weak on crime. It's like saying Braveheart didn't have enough car chases. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it kind of like almost makes sense, but not. It's a weird schism of a thought. I don't know what he was trying to get at. The Pope is he's not a law enforcement figure. He's not even political. Supposed to be. Anyway,
Also,
it just strikes me so odd.
Also of note, you literally can just walk into the Vatican. You don't have to apply for papers or whatever. You can just walk in while you're in Rome. You can just walk into the Vatican.
As long as you're not wearing shorts and a tank top.
Right. When I went there, it was wintertime, so I was not. But no, it's a ridiculous thing. And also like I'm not a Catholic, so I don't know. But as I understand it, what he says is the law. So I feel like he can't be soft on crime.
Right? He's like Judge Dredd.
Well, right. I mean, I as I say, I think that this is a political issue that you use in elections in America. So Trump is just reverting to a line that he knows is a good political attack. Of course, I would say I'm not a Catholic either, but I do think that there's, the Pope is very much, especially being an international figure, certainly has influence and certainly has some sort of authority. So on all issues, he can be looked to for either a particular opinion, or he can be looked to as a leader who has an opinion. So he should have opinions on issues, and he should make them clear, and he should be out there saying them, and some we'll agree with and some we won't, and that's okay too, because we're not Catholics. We don't think he's infallible. But I think this is just such a stupid attack for no reason, especially when Trump won the Catholic vote and has an entire voting bloc that is Catholic. So why in the world he'd want to attack their religious leader is doubly confusing or doubly weird. Let's say just weird, because that's Trump's wheelhouse, is being weird.
You know,
So
you
yeah,
know where
why?
there's carry on.
No, go ahead. That's the point.
You know where there's a bunch of Christians who are in danger is Palestine. A ton of Christian people live in Palestine. And I'm pretty sure Trump has not brought up anything about that.
Interesting.
Um, but yeah, like where do you think, you know, Jesus, of Jerusalem and, Bethlehem and Nazareth, where do you think those things are? They're still in Jerusalem now. Or in Palestine.
Yeah, right. And
Um,
I think he's far more concerned about the Catholics in El Paso, Texas.
I'm not a
And
Catholic, but I am a fairly regular church attendee, and I'm telling you, we're doing pretty fine.
yeah, I think it's a stretch to make the argument that Christians are under attack in the United States.
We've been doing excellently in
Yeah.
America.
Seems that way. There might even be a Christian president one day.
Yeah.
So, and anything else on Trump? Anyone got something on Melania and her press conference?
I'd like to point that out. She came out on, what was it, a Friday, and made her little statement that the lies about her must stop. I don't even know what lies. I know what we all believe about her, but I don't know that anybody had been saying it publicly any more than any other time. And then, and that was a lot of people's first question is why is she saying that, and why now? Why conjure up the Epstein files as an issue any more than you have to? And then over the next 12 hours, it came out that somebody she used to pal around with on the Epstein Express was about to give an interview and was saying a bunch of dramatic stuff on X. And people said, oh, well, it seemed like there was something about to drop. Did that ever drop? Did anything? Because it was supposed to be the next day. It was a Saturday, and it was going to be an interview, and the lady was making a bunch of threats to say things online. And I don't know if anything ever came of it. I don't know if it got stifled or if she had her say and nobody gave a damn. What a weird nothing burger. Maybe they successfully squashed it and we just don't know what happened. I don't know.
Well, right. I mean, after the success of the movie, perhaps her having this press conference was just enough to be able to sway the powers that be, so that it didn't actually get. Yeah, I don't remember anything coming out about the whatever it was she was pre-sponding to, and so you're right about that. And so, I mean, apparently it worked, but basically, it is sort of, you're right. It's very weird once again, because the great defense is, if you're saying things about how. I guess it was that Epstein had introduced her to Trump, and how false that was, because a different person introduced her to Trump.
Right.
In those same circles, in the pedophile group circles, it was a different person who introduced her to Trump. Oh well, that makes everything
That
much
changes
better.
things. Right.
Yeah.
And so it really gave the idea that there was something explosive to come out. And I don't remember anything explosive. It's very weird. I think in the fullness of time, should we live long enough, we'll find out that something happened or almost happened or something, and we just aren't privy to it because that's behind the magician's cape, and we don't get to see that.
Well, we'll find. Yeah, I mean, so we'll find out what it effectively did stop, because quite
50
obviously
years
it
from
did.
now, when they crack it open like FBI files of JFK's assassination.
Exactly. There might even be a version of it that's unredacted. Speaking of unredacted, and speaking of files that need to be released, we have a tradition here as we wrap things up of having an Epstein count up, and we are currently at day 3,956 of the days since the unredacted Epstein list has not been released to the public. And we want to make certain that you're reminded of it every week until it happens. Thank you for joining us for PolitiPod Live for Political Talk. You're welcome to join us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here for PolitiPod Live. If you want political laughs, you can join us and a half dozen of our friends for our monthly political comedy podcast, PolitiPod. You'll find that at soundcloud.com/PolitiPod.
I'm Tom Bickle.
I'm Hannah Soldner.
And I'm Matt Nisanoff saying goodbye.